All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Welcome. If you need closed captioning, there you can click on the CC button located at the bottom of your Zoom screen. You may need to click on the More option to toggle that option. My name is Lauren Whittick, and I will be the moderator for today's session. And supporting behind the scenes is John Bramble, my colleague. Um, I am the Assessment and Communication Librarian for Region 4, which is based out of the University of Utah Spencer S. Eccles Health Sciences Library. Region 4 is comprised of 9 states, which are Arizona, Idaho, Colorado, Montana, New Mexico, North and South Dakota, Utah, and Wyoming. So since some of you may be first-time attendees at an NNLM webinar, I want to provide a brief overview of what our organization does. NNLM stands for the Network of the National Library of Medicine, which is part of the National Library of Medicine, which falls under the umbrella of the National Institutes of Health. NNLM has 7 regions across the country, covering territories in all 50 states. Our guiding mission is to provide equal access to biomedical information and improve individuals' access to information to enable them to make informed decisions about their health. Regionally, we collaborate with various organizations, including but not limited to public and academic libraries, schools, hospitals, and community-based organizations. Our efforts are primarily conducted through 3 main methods, which are providing funding to enable organizations to support their communities, conducting outreach, and training like today's webinar. So a few housekeeping items before we get started. By registering for this session, you've agreed to the NNLM Code of Conduct. So we just ask that you please keep your questions and comments respectful, and this allows us to create a welcoming learning environment for all. You may have noticed we are recording today's session, and we will be sharing both the recording as well as the guest speaker slides with everyone who registered. Please give me about 5 to 7 business days or so to edit the captions for accuracy. However, we will email everybody who registered, whether they were able to attend live or not, the links once they are ready. Toward the end of today's session, we're going to share a link to an evaluation form. You can earn 1 continuing education credit. If you're interested, you just need to complete the evaluation form that we shared again at the end of the session. So even if you're not interested in earning continuing education credit, we would still love your feedback. So please consider sharing via that link once we share it out. And finally, we ask that you enter your questions into the chat as you think of them. We'll have some time for Q&A at the end of the presentation. Moving on, our next Region 4 webinar will be held on Wednesday, September 9th at 1 p.m. Mountain Time. And the session is called deafdiabetescan.org, the first diabetes education website in American Sign Language. We're going to put the registration link in the chat if you're interested in signing up. If you'd like to stay up to date with Region 4, we encourage you to sign up for our newsletter or visit our blog. Our regional page is nnlm.gov/offices/region 4, and we're also going to share that via chat as well. If you live outside of Region 4, I highly encourage you to head to nnlm.gov to find and connect with your respective region for additional training, funding, and outreach opportunities in your area. Now with that, I want to welcome today's wonderful guest speaker, Ms. Vida Vaughn. Vida holds an MLIS and a Cashel certification from the University of Pittsburgh and an MBA from the University of Louisville, where she currently serves as the director of Kornhauser Health Sciences Library. She leads all Kornhauser library operations, including a clinical librarian program that embeds 6 librarians across the University of Louisville medical departments and health systems, and serves on the University of Louisville Institutional Review Board. She collaborates widely across the schools of dentistry, medicine, public health and information sciences, as well as nursing. And with that, I'm going to turn over the controls to you, Vida.
All right, thank you, Lauren. And John, I appreciate your help. And everybody, cross your fingers and your toes that Vida can share. This is not my strong point on Teams. Okay, did I do it right? Are we good?
Looks good.
Everybody see? Oh, awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Lauren, for that introduction. I was privileged to meet Lauren at the Medical Library Association conference in Milwaukee this past May and shared some feelings about the topic that we're going to discuss today about helping to bring patient values into our organization and how we can be motivators for including that in health sciences education. So I am from the University of Louisville. I've been in Louisville. I moved down from Pennsylvania. I've been here. I was previously a public library director, and then the epiphany of knowing that medicine was the pathway I needed to go was able to start my career here in Louisville, and it's just been a wonderful journey and opportunity to meet so many of you from around the country. I have to make sure I'm using now, which one, John, you might have to help me if I want to continue. It's not letting me go to the next slide.
Are you using your keyboard arrows?
Yes, let me try again. Yeah, it's not. I apologize to everyone. I'll figure this out. And it's not taking my other one either. We should have tried that before. Let me see. The arrow. Is not letting it go.
Do you want to
I
try
apologize.
stop sharing and try again? See if it helps.
Let's see if it does try that again. Yeah. Stop share. We'll share one more time.
I also noticed you had some control buttons on your presentation window in the lower left-hand corner, if that still doesn't work.
Yeah, I see that as well. Again, I'm a Teams presenter, so seeing it's doing that on my it's not hitting the ones on my. What happens if I do this? Oh, you see that, don't you?
Yep.
So my question being, does anybody have a problem? Because I don't want to waste any more time on this. Anybody have a problem seeing the presenter mode, or you know what, I'm just going to go back. We're going to start over. Give me just 1 second here because I pretty much know this. So we're going to share. Okay, how's that? Everyone see?
It's
good.
beautiful.
Now, okay, now we're just going to do it this way. I'm not going to try and work about presenter. Anyway, as I've said, I'm here at the University of Louisville and came in and worked myself. I started as a hospital library. We have a contract services for librarians and resources for the University of Louisville Health System in Eastern Kentucky. And so I came in as a hospital library manager and over time worked up into the position of director. And it's been a really wonderful experience. And part of that, the objectives of this session today is to understand how we as librarians and librarians can help advance health initiatives and humanize healthcare through using different models of art-based or interactive activities that can help bring that sense of humanity and humanization to the patients that we serve. One of the ways that we do that is through art-focused and storytelling, which is we'll talk about change how you see how you change in the heart of medicine. We talk about different ways to engage audiences, students, faculty, staff, patients, and the public, and to gain adaptable ideas for implementing similar programs within your organization, and to reflect how visual narratives can help support community voices and foster empathy in our communities. So we have the main goal for us. We are very focused, and I'm sure it's the same for many of you, a very focused evidence-based practice model education here. And I work very closely with the dental students. I've worked with residents, different medical students, but my main focus lately since becoming director has been the connection with teaching grand rounds to dental students. And part of that is that they have to learn to use evidence-based practice models to create treatment plans for patients that have been through the system. And the one thing that I've learned in the history of working in this field is that the students, and oftentimes, sometimes even the faculty, are so focused on the mechanics of the job. And, that they, we're talking about how do you find the evidence? They talk about what you'd be doing in a clinical experience but sometimes when I'm hearing students reflect back about a patient or how their strategy for caring, I very, very rarely will hear about patient values. And I believe that we as a role of librarians if you're given the opportunity to be part of these education moments, is to bring the humanity and remind them that the people that we're seeing, the patients that we care for, have their own quality of life. Oftentimes it's, am I going to live? I'm living with this pain. It's horrible. How do I get through that? And how confining that can be and limiting it can be. How do I feel like I'm included because of my culture or my mores? How am I included in the conversation? And how do I just live what all of us would consider a quality life? And the foundations, as we know, of EBP is to integrate the research evidence, the clinical expertise, and the patient values. I would also argue resources, because you can have the highest gold standard recommendation, but if you don't have the resources, you have to critically think how we're going to go. And so we're wanting to include in here those patient values that include their beliefs, their preferences, their socioeconomic circumstances. If they can't afford or their insurance doesn't cover the gold standard of care, then what are we going to look? How do we critically think about, approaching care from a way that does include those kind of things? And then also using art and storytelling to reveal patient narratives and enhancing empathy and holistic care. Libraries can be supportive of patient voices, and I'm going to share some of the ways that we have included that in our library. So I'm going to ask a question, and please, I know that Lauren is monitoring the chat. I'm going to open up chat. I just want to have a little bit of an interactive before we go here. So when you think of medicine, and let's not do it try and step out of your job description a little bit here. But when you think about medicine, what images or emotions come to mind for you? What is it that hits you from personal experience, possibly? What are some? I'm just going to go ahead and chat, or if you have access, if they've allowed you to talk, but put that. I'm really curious to have some of you take that. Fear,
Anxiety.
yeah.
Sick.
Anxiety, yeah. It's. I think fear is a big one. Excluded, yep. It's like you don't. Do you know? Yeah. Have you tried to lose? Yeah. Go ahead and make me stand on the scale for the first time I come in. That's no anxiety there, It is. And I think even as educators, we can relate to that as being patients, I'll tell a funny story here. It's a little, I'm disclosing some of my own medical history, but last year I had to have, and I work in medicine and I see these things. I see the videos. I've talked with the patient. I do these kind of things, but I've had numerous surgeries. I had to have an open heart surgery for a ascending aortic aneurysm last February, a year and a half ago. And I'm in there and I'm terrified. And after the surgery and everything, they're coming in, it's getting near the time to go home, and they're coming out to take tubes out. And these are not small tubes. And I'm scared. My husband's, he's not there at the time. But I'm trying to be a big girl. And then, of course, it's an education hospital, so all the student nurses are coming in. So you're the show. And so the nurse is saying, I need to take these out. And I said, well, do I get a sticker? And she was like, well, what do you mean? I said, well, you give kids a sticker when, it's scary and it's going to hurt. Do I get a sticker? And a popsicle? And she laughed. And one of the sweetest, it makes me tear up. I know it seems really silly, but one of the sweetest student nurses, she ran out and she had a backpack that she went to an office backpack somewhere, and she came back with a sticker to put on my Band-Aid, and she brought me a popsicle because I endured this really scary and painful situation. And that, to me, is what we bring to the table about understanding, because medicine can be scary and anxiety ridden. And how can we teach? I thought, someone taught that young woman well. she understood that went above and beyond that level, and I'm so grateful for that for her. Um, okay, come on. So these are the things that we normally see in education. So they're usually, because we understand we've got PPI, we have privacy, and that kind of thing. So you're protecting the privacy of a patient, but these are the kind of things that we see, right? And that our students see. And so it dehumanizes the aspect of a diagnosis. And so what I want to share with you today are these kind of images. And this is what we're talking about. And you'll forgive me if I get a little bit emotional here because we're going to start with Trey. Trey is the young man, the little boy on the right. And when we did our project, he was 4.5 years old. And he had a very aggressive, he had 2.5, he was diagnosed with a very aggressive kind of cancer. And such a scary, horrific thing for his family. And yet when you look at that face, when you see that face and that joy, how can you not but feel the humanity of who he is? He's not the cancer. His life is not defined by the cancer. It's impacted by the cancer. And by that, I mean this past, he passed away. He passed away in February. And, but his life is not defined by the illness that he has. His family and the people that loved him remember this smile and this joy. Greta is on the left, and she has a condition for which she stops breathing at night. So she has a I can't say it. She has the tube, so they have to hook her up so that every night she can breathe. And I'm not saying the word right now, tracheostomy. And so, but look at the joy in that face. And then we have Isabella is on the left. Isabella is a biology major, undergrad biology major now at the University of Louisville. She's got the, I don't have my notes, but it's where your joints they're flexible, they don't work, they're not aligned, they're not strong. Ehlers-Down syndrome, and I can't open my thing and get it, but she has difficulty in moving and being able to access even the stairs that she's sitting on there. When you look at her now, you wouldn't think that this person is in a great deal of pain, but she is often. But her goal is to get through her biology degree and be able to move on to medicine in her education and to be a doctor. And then on our right hand, we have a dear friend, doctor from our medical school here, who served four served 4 tours of Iraq. And yet he has a disease that has taken, thank you, please put those in because I don't have my notes right in front of me. And so he has a disease that limits his sight. And so he's been very helpful working with us in our library and my associate director in making sure that when we're purchasing licenses for resources that we get those the accessibility attributes within that so that he can have access to the hearing and be able to read, be able to hear the journal articles, even though he oftentimes can't read them. But he has a huge impact on our medical students. So the impact of labels, when I'm in an in-person session, I bring a jar and it has dog biscuits on it. And I'm asking anybody in there, anybody want a dog? Anybody want a dog? And no one raises their hands and says, yes, let me have a dog biscuit. And then I show them that inside is chocolate, and then everybody wants chocolate. But the point being that they made an assumption of what was going to be in there because I had a label on it. And that was a deceptive label, to be fair and transparent about that. But also we are guided and driven by labels. And I think we all in our own personal lives have possibly experienced that, whether your child is being defined with ADHD or you're being defined with ADHD or some of these learning challenges. And therefore that labels then the assumptions about what that person is often even within the education system. And you have to be diagnosed to get help, which then puts a label. It becomes this very difficult cycle sometimes, and often puts a limiting focus or a limiting spectrum on what people can actually do and capable of. So how do we develop these? Our experience was developing partnerships where we could actually help amplify the voices and promote understanding through a grant-funded initiative. removing so that we could remove the labels for the partnership. And this project we call Positive Exposure. It started when the Vice President for Health Affairs and Vice Chair of Inclusive Excellence for Pediatrics, Dr. Faye Jones, I adore Dr. Faye Jones, came to me a few years ago. This project that I'm sharing now was a longer term initiative than some of the other ones I'm going to share. But she came to me and said, "We have a relatively large library. It's our construction is brutalism." Now that just makes you want to come to work, doesn't it? It's like I call it 1970 Moscow, because it's pretty much, and it has its own beauty, but it's concrete. And so she came to, and I've been looking for years, as long as I've been a director, I've been looking for ways to add warmth. We've added, we've got a company that does like a moss wall. We've tried to add some warmth to the concrete. And so when Faye came to me and said, "Vida, we're trying to build this partnership with Positive Exposure. Would you be willing to be the point to exhibit the collection?" And I was like, "Yeah, just add me on." Now, it was pointed out to me, and Lauren and I talked about this, pointed out to me while in Milwaukee, someone after the presentation asked the question of like, "Can you do that? As a director of a library, do I have the autonomy to be able to make that choice?" And yes, I did. And it became very clear to me that not everybody has the autonomy to be able to make that kind of choice for their organization. But for me, in this point, when Dr. Jones came to me and said, would you work with us? Can you do this with us? I was like, I am all in. Anything that's going to promote the humanity of the patients that our students are being taught to serve, I'm all in. And any place that's going to make our environment warmer and more engaging, I'm all in. And so this initiative, this grant was a combination of, I'm going to go ahead here. Yeah, it was a combination of the Crusade for Children, the Department of Pediatrics. Dr. Corey Harris was actually the lead on much of this project. Positive Exposure, which I'll explain in a little bit, the School of Medicine in general, and then the library. And so those were the entities that came together to work on this grant. And there were many, many meetings and feasibility consults before. How do we do this? What is going to be involved in it? And so it was a really rather large learning process and just to get the grant written. So Positive Exposure was founded by an award-winning photographer, Rick Giardotti, from New York City. Rick is known, some of you may be very, very young, but there were some really high-end models back in my youth days that's who he took pictures of. He was a well-known fashion photographer. And yet there was part of him for 25 years. So then part of him was like reaching out and seeing some of the, even in the models, some of the insecurities about how they were seen and how they were defined and what defined beauty. And this young woman on this picture is an example of that. He saw her, she's albinoism, and he was exposed to her and met her, and she just would like shrink. She would shrink back into herself, and she would shrink from space and encounter because she had been defined as different in her entire life. And he came to her gently and with, supportive parents and that kind of thing. He didn't just come to her alone, but he came to her and said, "Hey, working with someone, got her in an outfit, worked with her hair, and asked if he could take her picture." And he took her picture and got her laughing and enjoying. And this is the result of that. So you went from this very shy, withdrawn person who did not feel she belonged to having this bright, bright spirit about her. And his thing is that we all share the same needs. We need to be seen, we need to be heard, and we need to belong. And it was to him miraculous how this transformation happened when she was able to see her own beauty in a frame that was different than most of the people around her. And it was with that he started the Positive Exposure Foundation, which its mission is to be rooted in unity, in respect, inclusion through photography, film, education. And they have a gallery in New York City. I told him, he's such a personable guy. He's so wonderful. And I told him when I get to New York, we're going to come and see him. and visit him a little bit. But so that was the foundation for which we were working to be able to create the grant, to get the grant funding to be able to bring this project to Louisville. The positive exposure motto is change how you see. In other words, change how we help our students see, change how I see, and see how you change. And see how, if we can help our students change how they see beyond a diagnosis, then we can see how it will change them to become more empathetic, holistic caregivers. So this is the work. This just is a couple examples of planning, creating a plan, securing the partnership, engaging the stakeholders. And so, you had to get down. So Dr. Harris, as I mentioned, she was the person submitting the letter of intent. Then it lists all of us who were involved as part of the team and the collaborators and the departments. Then we had to get down to, what is it going to cost? So how this works is that Rick comes in. So and he was involved in these meetings too. I want to make that very clear. Rick was involved in these meetings because he gave direction and understanding of what a photo shoot and what this project entailed. And so what he does is we would work virtually with him on getting this information together. And with the idea that once it was in place and the money was secured, that he would come down at a designated time and we gathered the population of people within our community, within the school, to be able to have the pictures taken. And there's a whole consent process involved in that. But as you can see on the bottom, this project was over $46,000. So this was not let's do this in a weekend. This took a lot of money because you've got the accommodations of the photo shoot for Rick. You've got to have the transportation, the ground transportation, and then the families that are involved. The families get prints. All the families got prints of their photos, and then making sure it's at a museum quality plexiglass. So these were all the costs that were associated within this project. So this is, so we went through that, and I took out some slides because I was trying to get this PowerPoint sent to Laura, and it was so image heavy, no one wanted to share. The file was too large. So I took out some. I took out one that showed what our library really looked like before the start. But I also took out, the process was that there was 32 individuals or families that were approached to participate in this project. And this medical students helped with this. They helped go through and they helped to do the interview process, and they got the names. So there was this process of where we secured these names of these individuals and families to participate. And that went through the consent process of them knowing that this is going to be a public-facing project. Their image is going to be out there. So we had to make sure that all those, here's the IRB person who can't informed consents were properly taken care of. So that was done. And then Rick came down October, the year before that. He came down in October, and we set it up, and he did the photo shoot. I believe they did everything, all the people, within 4 days. And it was done on the main campus. We're the health science campus downtown, but the main campus had more space and building backgrounds kind of thing. So they did the shoot. They had it coordinated with the students and the leaders of the project to be able to help monitor and get the families through and get the photos going and get them set up. And so then our job was to prepare our space. Now this gives a little indication of we had to measure out the space we needed to give Rick an understanding so that he could create the photos. My team measured the spaces and the walls and the areas that these photos could hang in, so they knew what size to make the pictures. As you can see them leaning against the back wall. The gentleman, I'm facing him. He's on my left. I think you'll be seeing him anyway. With the blue shirt, the trousers, that's Felix Garza. He's our absolutely invaluable patron services director. He's our front facing. His team is our front facing team, and he's also our buildings. He oversees the building needs. And so he worked with the team to get all this. You can see the photos were shipped and delivered. So he worked to get this. And then we had to pull in facilities, because then we had to have the charge of having them hung. So then we had to work with facilities to be able to get these portraits hung everywhere around the wall. So that was the whole process. And I have to give credit to my Associate Director of Clinical Affairs, Jessica, because I was out for surgery when this part happened. I know when to leave a party. I know when to go, when all this hard work was going on and they had to get this all put up. It was basically our team that really worked with the Positive Exposure Foundation and the members of the grant to be able to get this information up, and they did a fantastic job. And so this is what it looks like now. This is about a third of our second floor, and then this is that you see on the top. There's the atrium. That's it. That leads into the third floor on the top, and the students can look down. It has a skylight above it, and so now we have these photos there. You see Trey there, our sweet dear Trey who passed away. And so then these photos, they're up and they warm. And I've always wanted something on the atrium wall there that would warm the space up. And so now we have these beautiful photos, and we have the photos along the majority of the second floor on one side of the building. And what you don't see here, because this was in the installation process, there's a little nameplate or description plate underneath that describes the patient in brief generalities, and just giving them their name and who they are in that situation. So before I go on, the next is that we had, once these got up and we got everything taken care of and all the signage put up, then our job was to have a launch event. We wanted to bring the families in, and we wanted them to come share in a moment. We wanted the health sciences community to share in this. We wanted the entire community. We were invited. We had parents helping to plan the launch event. We had individuals who were photographed to be able to, they actually spoke at the event. And I don't know if you can see from here, but underneath where it says positive exposure, you see a boy wrapping his arms around his mom. When I was up in the front, when he walked into our library, again, this all gets very emotional for me. He walked into our library and he looked, this is like way back down the space of the room there. He walked into our library and saw his picture, and he let out this squeal and just ran as fast as, there's a little bit of dyslexic, there's some intellectual development issues, and he just ran down to that picture and got his mom and took her down there and to say, look, Mom, look at my picture. Because so rarely was he ever noticed. We often tend, as a society, to look away. Or overlook. And that moment will stay with me till the day I die, when this young man saw his picture in this situation of this positive exposure, literally, and ran down there to embrace himself. And you will see this is the opening, and you will see that, we had the kids in and they were seeing themselves. And this kiosk on the right, we call it HAL. This is our HAL from, for those of you who are as old as I am and know the movie that's from. But Hal is also our technology librarian, created a space, and I have the QR code further in, created, all the stories are now put online. All the stories to all these individuals are now online to see the diagnosis that they have, to see how they've lived their lives, and that's all there. So this was our opening celebration. Rick is on the bottom here, the gentleman in the black suit. That's Rick Giudiatti. We had our ALS individual to help us out, the kids with their pictures seeing themselves. But Rick is our photographer, and we were working with him, and he had to because he was on the way to visit with the Pope, because the Catholic Church was wanting to have a similar kind of project to bring joy and enlightenment to members of the faith and kind of thing. So he is all around the world all the time. These are the family members on the bottom. We had name tags, and I took out the picture. We had a whole buffet of food that was arranged, and everybody partook. We also had the gentleman sitting clapping his hands up behind me. That is our Dean of Medicine, Dr. Bumpus, who is a wonderful advocate of our library. I adore him. He spoke, and then Dr. Faye Jones, who was the one who came to me and said, can we do this? She is sitting in red next to him. And then in front are the families. And Trey, our sweet dear Trey, is down in their stroller with the mask on with his family. And so then, this is the site, and I think the next slide has it. So this is how it looks when you go to our site. You'll see the individuals that were photographed, and you'll see their stories and what they, and the condition that they have and the things that they enjoy in life. And also we link in We link in agencies and support services that people can go to find and also to educate our students about those associations out there that are helpful in providing support for their patients. So there was one point where I was talking to the medical faculty about this, very excited about it. I said, you know, and I think all of you who are in libraries will understand this. I said, this is wonderful. I'm thrilled to be a part of it, but I can guarantee you that those students are the first thing they do when they come in our library is not going to go over and sit down and walk around and look at all these photos. That their focus is, I've got a test tomorrow. I've got to get this assignment done. And I believe all of you understand that. And so my feeling and my concerns expressed to the team was, you can do this, and it brings wonderful environment to our library. But unless you make this part of your curriculum, you're going to lose the utility of it. And so that is what they started to do. Now there are certain curricula and courses that the students have to go through, and they have to pick one of the patients or one of the subjects of the photographs, and they have to do whatever the rubric is for it. They have to do a report upon that individual. And so because I just knew that as wonderful as they are, and we have had so much feedback from students about how much more they enjoy the library because of the faces and the joy in these pictures. But I also knew that they're trying to graduate. They're trying to get through a course, and they're every minute they're so overwhelmed so many times that every minute is trying to meet the deadline. And so I was really grateful when Dr. Harris and Dr. Jones and many others, Corey, that they were able to try and implement this. And we do have a research study going on this now, actually. So these are the kind of things that you would see. This is Kay. She was the one who had picture before. She wasn't the same girl that was front, but you know, this is what she loves. She loves to sing. She's creative, and she loves to play and tumbling. And this is who she is. And she's autistic as well. That's just one part of her. And here's Delilah's story, you know, the perfect baby. She's got a situation where her heart was born outside of her chest, so they had to be working with that. But she's adored and loved and has brought great value. So the Prader-Willi Foundation and Syndrome that helps with this. And then we also wanted to get this beyond our own academic. We also had Spectrum News. Spectrum News came in and they did a piece on this. They interviewed myself as the librarian, as the library director. They interviewed Corey Harris. She's in the black and the white, the black sweater. And so she and Dr. Sarah Court, they did interviews with her to talk about what this means to the education on the campus, the health education. And they also, we also put it in the U of L News. It was an article in the U of L News. And so we have links to those for people to go to, and we try and share that. So this is the QR code if you'd like to. It does work. I tested it before I came on. But this exhibit was to celebrate individuality and to demonstrate what the outcomes of collaboration, U of L students, faculty, the community members that were there, and also the Positive Foundation. It empathized, it brought storytelling that told the stories and brought empathy into the care and to the whole nature of who these people are, that they're not just someone who is autistic or someone who is blind, that they are an individual of value. And the libraries, we were able to have our role to curate this. Yeah, thank you. I'm really trying to chat. To curate the exhibit and to have it. This is a permanent exhibit. It's not going to come down, except for we're looking at doing some renovations, and we've talked about maybe needing to move some of the portraits to be able to accommodate some of the upgrades that we're trying to do. But that's still down the road. But there is a permanent exhibit. It will always be here. So that was a really what I would consider a top-end initiative that required a good deal of funding. Certainly not the most grant money people get in our field, but that was more of a long-term situation. And so the ones I'm going to share next are simpler, and yet has still had a positive impact in our organization. So it's said that art and medicine are both acts of care. One heals the body, the other heals the soul. And Henry Ward Beecher stated, "Every artist dips his brush in his own soul and paints his own nature into his pictures." And so we have established what we call the Heart of Medicine, and this is up on our third floor, and this is open. This came about because this was a product of the pandemic, and I know all of us remember learning was online. You were separate from the individuals around you. I could sense there was just a heaviness that people were carrying, and the students were burdened. As we all know, that the students, the first and second year medical students and dental, the students that were during that time, that there, once we came back to in person, there were challenges associated with getting everybody back on par, on track. And there was just this and then also for Louisville, to be honest, was that we were in the middle of the Breonna Taylor crisis. We were, and I'm not exaggerating, we were a military state. We had tanks on the corners down from the library. We had military in our streets, and it was just an overwhelming, heavy environment. And so I talked to my team, and I was like, "What can we do that can help?" That we can help in the healing, or something that we can do to take people to a higher level out of the textbooks or out of the streets, and just something that could be creative. And we came up with, and looking at what some of the other institutions have done, came up with this Heart of Medicine. And this is open to anybody on the health sciences campus: staff, physicians, faculty, students. We have people with the hospital, because our hospital is across the street. So this is where they can come and bring their artwork, and they can have it displayed. And we started with a semester rotation, and then we got to the point where we are now just a rotating, it just rotates. And so people can, we have strategized marketing, that we work with our marketing team to get it out there, to remind people. We have initiatives. We've had initiatives where, bring in, you can get a gift package, you can win a gift package kind of thing. We had different approaches to get people to do it. But this is all mediums are welcome. We've even got digital, although we haven't had people bringing that one. We've got monitors and such to help show digital work. But we have people, our dear friend, Mary Boyd, she does this beautiful knitting. She and her husband both bring knitting in. We have on the right, you'll see this by Haley Shipley, Major Depression. And I'll tell you the partnership with that. And then this is one of our physicians. The photos on the bottom are photos that have been taken. And I have to laugh at myself as a medical librarian and the director of a health sciences library. When I went to hang the kidney ones, I had to ask one of the medical students which direction it hung. And I'm embarrassed to say that now, but it was like, wait, how do I hang that one? So they laughed at me, and they came over and helped me get it in the right spot. But this has been a really great opportunity. And one of the things that we have done is there's within the School of Medicine and within the School of Nursing, there are courses that involve students doing some kind of artwork at the end of it to reflect the psychological basis of care. And so they are required to do artwork of some kind to reflect the things that they've been studying about, or the personal experiences they have. So this Major Depression is one of the pieces that came out from that course. And so dear Rudy Clark, we adore her at the School of Nursing. She collaborates with, we have one person who's in charge of handling and monitoring the Heart of Medicine. We make sure that every semester we get that artwork brought in, and the students can either come back and pick it up, or it gets donated to the School of Nursing and to us, and we put that up there. This is an example of how the QR code, people go in and they fill out a form, and it describes what their artwork is, what medium they're using, their name, that kind of situation. And so submissions are always open. We have that as part of our carousel online for our homepage. And again, on strategic times, we advertise, we go through the university communications and advertise. We did go through legal to have the release and agreement portion of this approved, because we want to make sure, we want to protect ourselves. We do have a standard. All the submissions have to fit within the student and faculty behavior guideline standards. They have to fit within that. And then it's whether they want to donate it or do they want it back. And so these are the forms that we have, and we keep, because my concern was we don't want to lose, we want to make sure we identify the pieces that are shared with us to make sure they get back to the artist or the owner of them. And so there's a process in how we can make sure, and Ellie is our person in charge of that, and Ellie makes sure that they are keeping track, really good records to make sure that the pieces are getting back to where they belong, whether it's the School of Nursing or to individual donors. So the Heart of Medicine has been a really great experience of artistic expression in medicine, original paintings, drawing, mixed media, themes like vulnerability. Oh, when we were putting up the first set, and I saw the work that was coming in from the students, I was just hit in my gut because, and again, remember this was the pandemic, when I was hit in my gut, literally, when I saw the struggles that these students were going through, bipolar, major depressive. It was extremely eye-opening to me, which also led to the instigation of the initiation of using donor funds to build a meditation room and center, and having a space where people can go and be in a desensitized kind of area and just breathe, because these students are under so much pressure. And I was astounded at the level of pain I saw in the artwork that was coming to us to be shared. And so that empathy is such a huge part of this. It exhibits a reflective space for people to share and appreciate, and it goes to that whole aspect of emotional intelligence. So this one was by far our cheapest, and the one I thought, nah, this isn't going to work, but the one that surprised me quite a bit. That was I was visiting, I believe it was in Arkansas, it was either in Georgia or Arkansas. I was visiting another health sciences library, and I saw they had these huge coloring papers, posters on the wall, and I thought, I'd never seen anything like that. I thought, oh, and they were pretty much filled out, and I thought, I wonder. And so I came home and I asked my administrative assistant to order these. She ordered a few. And I thought, okay, we bought crayons, and we had some little advertising set up, and I was afraid that they were thinking, oh, this is silly. We put those up, and as you see, this is the first day we had students just going up and having some downtime, releasing pressures of studying, and these filled up so fast. And I even put one down in the staff area just for them to work on. And these were very, very popular. I was really amazed at how popular these were, and what it gave a little bit of a separation away from the hard studies and to be able to be creative. And another aspect of it that was very interesting to me that I monitored was it was a place where people who were told they should not be heard or felt they could not be heard to be heard. And so I had to be careful, because we have policies about what about how you could protest on campus, this kind of thing. And there were some statements about people's feelings about certain world conditions that they were just kind of writing. You could tell, I can't say this out loud anywhere, but they were writing them on the poster. And I'm like, okay. And then there were another student, and they were having these debates on the poster, and it was the one on the bottom here that it was started. And they started having these debates, and I thought, I'm going to watch this, because I don't want this to get, first of all, I don't want it to get injurious, and I also don't want to get fired. And but I also did not want to push down the ability for someone to express themselves. And so it was contained. It did not get out of hand. It did not get disrespectful. And yet that allowed a space for someone who was feeling like they could not be heard to have a voice. Puzzles, we have that too. We have puzzles. We have one of our custodial team. He has set up. We have a chessboard, and they come in, and the students come in and they do the white, black. They do. We try to have all those. We had some game thing. We have all these kind of things to try, and we're working on some ones coming up. But as far as art, and puzzles are extremely popular for my staff as well. I think our tech services team has done about, on their lunchtime and stuff, has done about 30 this year. But trying to find ways that people can step back and take a breath. As my husband often tells me, there's times you need to step away from the plate And that was one of the things we do both for our staff and also for our community. But I was really pleased and happy. It did kind of run its course after about 3 years, and so we don't have them now, but we have other areas that we're bringing in. So the whole thing on this, and Lauren, help me if I'm running out of time here. The whole thing is that narrative storytelling helps to humanize patients beyond the clinical diagnosis, revealing their unique personal journeys and emotions. It validates them. Everyone needs to be validated and to belong and to be needed. Storytelling fosters empathy and the better understanding of compassion. And art and narrative they play a key role in breaking down barriers and promoting understanding. And then integrating storytelling and professional practice enriches care and appreciation by the individuals that have lived with it beyond the data and the diagnosis. So ways that you can move forward, there's strategic collaborations that you can find within your communities. Getting someone who has I was visiting our grandchildren, and they live up in Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and I went to a mall because malls, the brick and mortar buildings are having a hard time right now. But someone had taken the whole part of a mall and had schools come in and bring their artwork to put on that wall. So you're looking for a space that can exhibit, and the schools and the mall in that area, they collaborated to bring in this artwork that was coming from the schools around the area. I thought that was absolutely fantastic. You want to ensure that storytelling is a part of that, and have inclusive programming and have it be accessible and engaging in what we're doing. And everybody's going to have different ideas and approaches, and you want it to bridge science and art, because there is an art of medicine that is really important. And I have wonderful faculty here that have written books about it, that are fully engaged in bringing art into the healing process, and that's been a real gift to work with. There's professional associations that, like the ALA, MLA, ARL, nonprofits that, like with the Child Foundation, those kind of your neighborhood associations or civic groups, universities and colleges. And I know you have to go through communications, you have to go through protocols and policies. That's always important to make sure you're aligning. There's cultural centers and museums to work with that you can collaborate with. And then, of course, you've got your faith-based organizations to collaborate. Oh, I can't talk, I'm done. So anyway, this is our mascot. This is our mascot, Maisie. She was, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cry. Maisie is our team rescued her from the street. She was abandoned, and she comes to the library regularly. She's our comfort dog. That's another aspect. I often take Maisie around and take her around and let the students, and they just eat her up. They just that break from studying just to pet her and love on her. This particular time, I dressed up in a Tyrannosaurus Rex costume and took homemade cookies around to the students while they were studying. It's always, how do we make this a little easier for the students? How do we bring joy into the space? How do we celebrate humanity? And so that's really all I have to share today. Do you have any? I'm open to questions.
While folks are thinking, I'll just read some of the comments. Millie had said someone donated a bunch of coloring books to us today.
Yeah.
We're going to set up a table for medical residents and nurses to color. So
Wonderful.
the lines. And yeah, you mentioned Sarah. Sarah had mentioned puzzles are popular at her location. Kelly had said we have a coloring station with coloring pages and crosswords and things. It's heavily used. So popular across the board. So while folks are thinking, I'll just ask a question. What has been the most unexpected impact you've observed from hosting these displays?
That's this displays the amount of creativity that we have among these students that are really in intense curriculums. I mean, these are we're talking about professional students, but the amount of artistic and musical and creative abilities that are within these students, because we often only look at them, I'm going to get the degree, the degree aspect of it and how smart they are and to get in medical school, all that kind of thing. But that to see the kind of level of work that are coming from these students and the faculty and the staff has been a gift. It's been amazing. It's been a gift for them to be able to share it. I think that as far as the positive exposure, just that we still have people who come in to visit and bring their families in to see the pictures. Look, they're there. Just the idea, the impact and especially seeing the families respond to this, the impact of being seen. And I think, Lauren, you and I talked about that a little bit. Oftentimes, people are uncomfortable about dealing with difference, people that are different, and all the people in this were either intellectually, physically, or behavioral challenged. They could be any one of those areas. But how oftentimes they become othered in that sense because people don't understand. And oftentimes, instead of taking the time to research and understand what it means, we use sound bites. And so that was for me the impact of seeing these wonderful individuals be seen. And it gave me the motivation to, and I'm not just talking about, in this, we have communities that we work with every day that are not what we would call high profile people. I make sure that every person that cleans this building has a birthday acknowledgement, or they have, that they get a little Christmas thing, or that I tell them when I see them, thank you, because these are the people that keep us running. The security guards. We are downtown. It can be an interesting place, downtown Louisville, and I appreciate that there's someone looking after my welfare. And so this whole experience to me has also helped reinforce the need to acknowledge the people around us who are sometimes overlooked for whatever reason, because of the socioeconomic level, the job that they do, the diagnosis that they have. And everybody needs to be seen. And then just the wonderful opportunity it was to work with a multidisciplinary group of compassionate, empathetic medical professionals who care so much about this. Especially, we have a children's hospital about a block away from here, that really care about bringing empathy into medicine, which really gives me hope for the doctors that we're graduating. So that's a list of a few of the things. And my place looks so much nicer now.
Yes, yes. Most importantly, yeah.
It's up there. It's up there.
It's up there. It's a nice, it's
Yeah.
a nice welcoming space now. Yeah.
Yeah. It was before, but that brutalism concrete is really hard to make feel cozy.
I am very aware. That was my last workplace. Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. We have a comment from Vanessa. It says, thank you so much, Vida. Your heart is so big. I'm a brand new MLIS student and have been signing up for so many webinars to help me out the best way to focus my coursework. Health sciences and healthcare are rising up, which is why I'm here. Wherever I land, I hope I'm able to bring my heart into my work the way you do. You are an inspiration.
Thank you. That's very kind. I do have to say that when, I was a public librarian, I did love that. I had my people, we were getting their GEDs. We worked with the Department of Education to make sure that these kids that kind of didn't make it through high school, that we got that for them and stuff. But the idea of being able the idea that health information has on people's lives and the importance of our role as librarians. And I found that personally for just people of my grandson and my best friend who had a very rare disease. And even before I got to be able to find information that would change their lives. And I think that's something unique. I love library work. I always have, but there's something unique about what we do in the health sciences that does it at a different level that I think has a major impact.
We have a question. A previous slide referenced a toolkit. Is that something you've put together for some of these projects that will be shared to us?
Well, first of all, I believe you get don't they get the whole slides? The toolkit,
Yes.
the toolkit in general. That was basically, I have to go back, but, Elizabeth, go back. I don't believe I gave you, I was suggesting that you create a toolkit, I think, and as far as the positive exposure, the toolkit was pretty much, it's back in here. We're going back. It was in this area of, I'm sorry, it was in this area where the toolkit came. It's like, how do you establish who your partner is going to be? How are you going to find, first of all, finding money, the grants that are possibly available, right? And so the positive exposure, one of the doctors was exposed, no pun intended, to positive exposure, and then went looking at these other organizations for the grant. And that was part of the toolkit, is finding how do you bring all that together to, how do you find those organizations that you can, then you go look for the funding sources that might be available that will be able to support that. And then and so that's the cool toolkit. And thank you for bringing that up, Elizabeth. I need to do a better job on making that a more concrete thought process. But then it was pretty much in line. We knew we had positive exposure. Who are we going to find our collaborators to help us give us the grant money to do that? Then building the team here at the university to be able to create this and pull it together using the faculty and the students and everything, and then getting it. You have to put that all through you have to put it through the financial offices of the university. Grants have to be, go through the grant process of the university. And so there's all those boxes to tick that you have to do. And that's why it took about 3 years from the time that Faye came to me and said, would you be the exhibit space for this, until it actually became the launch event. Because all of that takes time, but not to be discouraged. And if you have a team working together and everybody's kind of looking, then it goes so much faster. And I appreciate that, because I will work on putting something together for that.
And we got one more. We're a little over, but Elizabeth said, I'm recently disabled during pandemic. I was a classical violinist gone patient, now working as a therapeutic musician in hospice medical atmosphere. I'd love to connect.
Gosh.
Yeah, I'd love to connect about the music component to art. This has been very informative. I'd love to collaborate or talk more about these incentives for art in these spaces as I'm writing grants.
Oh, that is wonderful. I know that when I was a hospital library manager, the nurses were doing, one of the research projects was to look about the music therapy and how they could integrate that within the hospital. I think that's fantastic goal. And well, good on you to go through such a difficult experience for your own health and come out wanting to make a positive impact on others. Thank you for being that example.
Yes. All right, we are at time. I'm going to stop the recording.
Thanks for watching. This video was produced by the network of the National Library of Medicine. Select the circular channel icon to subscribe to our channel, or select a video thumbnail to watch another video from the channel.